was fun.
I just had to put it offline and then
Gosh.
back on to fix the sound
Show's
issue.
over. Thanks for tuning
Technical
in.
issues.
It's like a little
Alright,
round
rolling
there.
now?
Just write tech issue and then put it back up.
We're back streaming, so... Go ahead, Vera.
Oh, you said we're back up. Okay, once again, welcome to Out of Mana. I am Burrow. This is episode 3 of our podcast, and we will mainly be discussing the 5.2 changes, specifically to do with Priest as well as Druids. Unfortunately, we are unable to discuss Monks today. One of our lovely little monks missed. His microphone is broken, and another one has a family emergency and is unable to make it. So we will try and discuss it next week, either before the show or just sometime later on in the
If
week.
I can get a time for Miss and Practical, we might just stream a small little show.
But let's get started with our priest talk. If our lovely little priest on the right-hand side wanna start.
We should
feel like you're segregating us.
probably also we should probably also introduce Ellie, who is our guest for the evening. So hello, Ellie.
If you wanna
You wanna
talk a little
tell-
about yourself, you can.
Sorry,
How long
I'm
have
on
you
the
been
phone. One sec.
So we have a priest on the phone. This is like my LFR last night all over again.
Oh lord.
Well, since Ellie's on the
Did they at
phone,
least tell you an LFR? Because that
No,
would
we
actually
get-
be impressive.
It seemed like
Okay.
four of the 6 healers were from the same guild. And we got to third boss and Terrace, and it ended up being me and the guild healer I brought healing the entire thing. And all of a sudden, the other 4 were like, oh, sorry, we were AFK.
Pretty.
Alright. But Ellie, you just want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I am Alethea. I am with Electric Sheep. I've been a priest healer since vanilla. Not much to say other than I'm probably about as obsessed with priest as Morin, if not more so.
And milk. Don't forget milk.
More so, I think.
Frightening.
It is frightening. It's a frightening bad habit
Guys and
too.
the priests.
I'm working on my third.
I have 4, I think. Ellie has 10 or more.
You guys
Wait,
are
are
all
you
crazy.
serious?
Well,
Sword.
priests are just that awesome. Come
It's just a
on.
lot of
You can't deny
priests.
that.
It's true. I have one of each race. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god. Like, I can believe 4.
I'm
but-
jelly.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's...
She's my hero. I
Yeah.
worship Ellie.
And apologies, everyone, for the yowling cat in the background. Zelda will
So-
hopefully stop soon.
Those priest changes. Dang.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Mainly disc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Ellie,
well,
Joe, Matt, you all want to
honestly,
go ahead and
I would
jump into
argue. There are people who would disagree, but I would argue that Holy is in rather a good place right now.
I think
It's
Holy's
just,
in a good place too.
it's just that
it is.
it's so overshadowed by Disc. You know, like Disc being OP basically makes it seem that Holy is underpowered when it's not.
Well, that's true.
It's
Holy's
really not,
not
yeah.
underpowered, it's just underused more than anything else.
Well, it's underused because of where Disc is right now. Because if you're a priest, why would you, even if it's good enough, why wouldn't you want to be better than good enough?
So
Is
you can
what a
find-
lot of people think. Well, no, I agree with you. And Milk's a good example. If you like the Holy play style, then absolutely play Holy and you'll do well. But
Yeah, I mean,
we
if you're gonna,
know how people are.
the way I see it is if you're better at one spec, it's pretty much a disadvantage to a raid if you go to another spec and you're not as good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
That's absolutely true.
if you are decent at both specs, though, for progression itself, there's, at the moment, Disc is just so OP that there's really nothing that Holy brings over it, which is obviously a huge problem, and something that the 5.2 priest changes do seem to address in a small fashion.
Well, there's Sulong.
Yeah.
We can talk about that gimmick, but no.
Well, yeah, but Sulong's just... Oof.
But that's what it is. It's a gimmick, and that's the unfortunate part of having these two specs, because Holy is not underpowered. There are changes that could be made, but they're mostly
Yeah.
quality of life.
Mostly changes to like our regen and
Yeah, I mean, even regen is, I'd say, about on par with other healers. People just
it
they
is
see
really it
disc.
is.
So, but yeah, it sounds like today is going to be a big discussion on disciplines since so many changes are coming up.
I mean, everyone's eyes are pretty much on discipline, so,
We are.
And I think Morin will be covering the 10-man, and I will be doing as much as I can for the 25-man.
And Frozen will be chipping in with the 10-man stuff as well, since
Yeah, I'll probably
he does
blab every now and
heroic, and I just do normal support. Would you like to address 25-man since you are the guest of the evening?
Absolutely. I'm just going to be going in order, basically, that they're listed on the PTR page. And it looks like first up there is the Power Word Solace change. For those who don't know, it's replacing Holy Fire. It deals the same damage, interacts with other spells and abilities in the same way, but it's now instant cast, costs no mana, and restores 1% max mana each cast. I have to say I'm not enthused.
personally, I've seen so much polarization about this talent specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people who just love it, and there's people who are just like, yeah.
And it's a good change in some ways. I think it's taking a unique direction with our toolkit. The frustrating thing is that what I think it does is box anyone who wants to really push atonement healing into taking that talent, because otherwise you don't have that instant cast, which is, I mean, it's valuable just for the cast time reduction alone. And then you take a look at any high movement fight and you say, well, if I can have that extra atonement heal, why not do it? There's no reason not to take this. And then if you look at just the mana, you have Mindbender, where you're getting Mindbender is about 48k a minute. And with the Powered Solace, you're getting about 18k plus the 24k average from Shadow Fiend for 42. And that's not even taking into account the fact that it's free. So if you cast Holy Fire more than once per minute when you're using Mindbender, you've already negated that additional mana gain. So.
Yeah, Solace itself has gone through so many changes now. It's, I mean, it's good to see that Blizzard is iterating on it, though, and seeing that, you know, people are unhappy with the current iterations and whatnot, so that's good at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's,
the current iteration is, ooh. Yeah.
now there's not much reason to take it, at least for this, because it doesn't interact with anything. If I've got time to DPS, I'm going to be doing something that also heals, and builds up evangelism stacks. And I mean, I like the fact that it will work with evangelism, but I agree that Holy Fire is no longer an option anymore because it will go to cast time.
I don't know, like a 2-second base cast time isn't that bad, honestly. It can
You
be
can't
more
cast while moving if it's even a 1-second cast time. The whole point was it gave us another thing to use during movement fights,
absolutely.
which is, you know, why it's not, I mean, it will still be a good heal, but it won't fill the niche that we needed it to fill.
Sure, but I mean, I would argue that you don't necessarily need it on all fights. For example, on Windlord, you don't need it necessarily. So it can be looked at as much more situational now for, I mean, 5.2 rather. So,
Well,
I mean,
yes and no. I mean,
there's
right now we
away.
have 4-piece for penance, so we can use penance while moving a good percentage of the time, but if and when we lose that set bonus, it's gonna hinder our mobility too, and losing an instant Holy Fire is going to do that much more.
You also have to consider the fact that instant Holy Fire is a great burst heal, especially if you know who it's going to be landing on. If you have a high tank damage fight, or if you have a fight like Heroic
To
Leishi.
be fair, if there's tank damage, high tank damage, you should always be precasting, so I don't know if that's...
I don't necessarily agree. If you're in a situation where you're not, I mean, and I'm speaking from a 25-man perspective, if I'm not specifically assigned to be tank healing, and I can push that extra DPS and know that my Atonement is almost always going to be going on the tank, then I'm going to do that. And let the other healers do the hard casting on the tank.
Well, absolutely in 25, since there's much more diffusion of responsibility. Plus, honestly, I would rarely put a Disc Priest on the tanks, since, Spirit Chill plus Pair of Healing is extremely good right now. And it will still be pretty good in patch, but I guess we'll get to that.
We will.
But, in 10-man, if your tank's going to take a Dread Thrash in, 2 seconds or something, that's always telegraphed. You know when it's going to go, and basically everyone's going to precast it,
Oh yeah,
So-
if you can precast on something that's anticipated, that's great. But if you just have a consistently high damage intake on the tank, you have that that really strong heal from Holy Fire, and it's because it's an instant cast. If you you need to move abruptly, you get a wind bomb dropped on you, what have you. You can cast that while moving, and that that's still going to hit him. Assuming you can't Power Word Shield, assuming you can't send off a penance on him, or a penance on the tank, or boss.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it doesn't have its uses. It's just, I feel like this way it is a little bit more situational, and you can choose not to use it, to use Mindbender instead if you feel like you don't need that instant cast. Whereas now you pretty much glyph it and forget, I would think. So, I really don't see a downside to not glyphing it.
That the mana cost also, the mana gains from it, if you use Atonement really at all, it's going to pretty much be mandatory.
Yeah.
I think Mindbender... Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Mindbender might still be more damage, slightly, but
Yeah.
you get way more mana out of.
Yeah, if you're assuming you're only using Holy Fire, which I don't think is something that's realistic. If you're assuming you're only using Holy Fire on cooldown, not using any other Atonement spells, not using Penance, Mindbender is absolutely going to be, leagues ahead in terms of damage. But if you are, if you're using your other Atonement abilities, in that perspective, yeah, you're definitely going to get more damage out of Mindbender. But you're also trading off the fact that realistically you're also probably going to be getting / saving more money by more money. We're all about money now, apparently. I sold out, sorry guys. We're all about mana, and with the changes that are coming up with mana, I think that it means that I honestly think that the new Power Word Solace is going to be nearly mandatory for Disc Priests, at least.
Well, keep in mind that if it does feel that mandatory, it will be changed, most likely. They're really against that, so... that's why they're changing it right now. So.
Well, yeah, but it'll be...
It's still PTR. They always iterate. We're kind of talking about a Binding Hill change here, that the glyph is baseline on PTR, but it's not active yet on the current PTR build. They just change things all the time, so, it almost certainly is just an experiment right now, and if it feels too mandatory for all the raid testers, then they'll most certainly change it. Not a lot,
yes, but
yeah.
Mindbender was already considered, Mindbender's been considered mandatory for about the past 6 months.
Yeah,
And
that's why they're changing Solace.
yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is, yes, they may change the new Solace, but we could be looking several months down the line. And right now, I agree with Ellie that it probably will, because especially if we're we'll go into more detail about Divine Aegis, but if we're supposed to be using more shields, even with the cost reduction, we're going to need as much mana as we can. And yeah, that'll be the best way to get mana.
Well, again, like the mana cost, everything is not final. So, if it's best for mana, if it's best for throughput, and if it's best for all of those at once, that's obviously going to be something looked at again. I mean, I think you guys are just not putting enough credit to Blizzard. They do look towards PTR stuff a lot, so...
Verse said they didn't. My point was if you think it's highly likely that they're going to change it right now because it seems mandatory, history dictates that that's
not
completely
right now.
false.
It pretty much just started, so,
Mindbender was even...
PR itself.
Mindbender was even counted as mandatory on the beta for raid testers on there, and it stayed the same from beta into live into however long we've had it. So.
Yeah, I think that's mostly because they didn't really realize what they wanted Solace to be. And Disc itself was so broken at the start of...
Now who's not
when you think about it, this game is...
You can't really say that, Sparkle, because we never saw how Disc scaled pre-hotfix.
Yeah,
but looking at that same talent tree,
it was broken.
I'm kind of surprised Blizzard hasn't actually gone in and looked at From Darkness Comes Light from a healing perspective. It feels very much like Omen of Clarity for Druids, and obviously people aren't taking it because the other
way better.
Oh yeah, but just the idea of it, it feels very much like that, and people aren't taking that talent at all as a healer.
Yeah.
This expansion is still relatively new. I'm expecting a whole lot of changes coming out.
Absolutely. I know I, for one, still think that things like Omen of Clarity and From Darkness Come Light, aka Surge of Light, should just be baseline. I mean, it was always something that felt like it should be baseline for Holy, at least. And I know that maybe they're trying to expand that to make, to include Disc, but it's not a compelling talent. It's not interesting. It's not particularly effective. I know people argue for it for fights like Sulong, and anecdotal evidence being anecdotal, it just wasn't. I wasn't feeling like it was particularly powerful. I tried it a couple of times, and I ended up swapping straight back to Mindbender because I was able to just, pop Mindbender out, know exactly when I was going to get that extra mana, and put a lot more into my healing as Holy than I was with, that hit or miss, am I going to get lucky, am I not, with Surge of Light.
Man,
it's kind of nice now that...
Like I said, polarizing for one talent. What's the next one on the priest changes?
The next one is Glyph of Binding Heal, which you mentioned. We're not sure. It looks like it might be changing to baseline. But
that would be nice.
So 3 targets normally, including yourself.
And that would put it at what? It's what, 30%, or how much mana was it cost?
35%.
35%. That puts it up to about 20k a pop.
Ouch.
22.
Yeah, 22k. Yeah, 22k. That's what I found. So it's both an HPM and an HPS increase, but that cost is
painful.
I think if they had it, healing a third nearby target baseline, and had a fourth with an increase of 35%, I think at least Disc would find that nice.
Efficient. So, considering it does heal.
Better than Flash Heal, but it's not great. Not compared
No, it's not amazingly efficient, but it's not supposed to be.
Well, it's not supposed to be currently.
Feel like an emergency heal still.
Yeah, and I can kill my cat for crying.
It's terrible. Wow.
It is terrible. I'm sorry. I looked it up. All right, I tested it, and the HPM is pretty low for Binding Heal. It's still about 5 points, 5.74 with my gear, which is that's painful, and that's without the glyph. With the glyph, it jumps to... Oh, no. 5.74 is with the glyph. 5.17 without the glyph. And I think if I'm right and they're trying to turn that into sort of our spot heal, especially for disc, I don't think Holy necessarily needs it or wants it, but if it's supposed to fill that void that we currently have for disc, I think that they're going to have to work to make it reasonable, to the cost effective, basically.
Right now, I probably wouldn't use it still, even if the glyph was baseline, because it's still way too much mana to be spending per second. I'd rather just use Atonement in that case. That's
pretty
me.
situational, though. I mean, if you and the target are, I don't know, if you're on Garishal or something, and for some reason your group also has a ton of ads in the Spirit Roll, and you basically have to palm heals, you can't really rely on Atonement, so it's pretty situational still. But that's basically what Binding Heal should be.
Would be helpful in situations like that, but yeah.
I mean, it's not supposed to be, like a everything heal. I mean, Protector of the Innocent was nerfed because it was like that powerful. Not that Binding Heal is the same thing,
Well, and you have to consider too that, if it's that's why I'm guessing it's meant to act as a smart heal for situations where Prayer of Healing isn't going to work out, but if enough people are taking enough damage, Prayer of Healing is going to be that go-to, even without DA, because that's all we have, unfortunately, to work with damage.
It still seems like Blizz hasn't fixed some of the smart heal issues that have been around, like healing. I mean, I still get heals on Ghost Iron Draklings at times. So if it's a smart heal, is it going to be worth it when you have Warlocks summoning extra demons or extra pets that are going to be out there from hunters? And bloodworms.
Bloodworms and the Ghost Dragonling, which I believe was finally fixed.
I don't know, because I've still gotten ticks off of it on my healing stream in dungeons.
I don't think my Atonement I don't think hits the Dragonlings anymore, but I'm still getting a ton of bloodworms because one of my takes is a DK, so I'm constantly keeping his little bloodworms alive.
I haven't had too many issues, although I will say that it annoys me to no end to see Atonement heals being absorbed by people in Dissonance on Empress.
Annoying.
Very. Speaking of Atonement, the Glyph of Holy Fire has been changed, now increasing the range of Holy Fire's Smite and Powered Solace by 10 yards. I don't know about Morin, but I think that's a change that should be baseline. I'd rather the Glyph just not exist.
Agree. I think it should be baseline because it should be 40 yards like other heal spells. That said, I don't like it as a glyph because I have the glyphs that I want and I don't want to change them. I don't think it's worthy of a glyph spot. It should be baseline.
Yeah, it feels, if anything, like a minor glyph, not major.
I agree.
I sort of feel the same way. I'll probably take it too, but
yeah, I mean it's worth it, I guess, on some fights. I don't know that I'd take it constantly.
Yeah, I definitely won't take it constantly. If there is some specific reason that I definitely want to be or need to be that far away, then obviously I'd take it. But as a general rule, I'm good with the glyphs that I run most of the time, which are, changed out occasionally, but most often I keep the
Guys,
same.
I just want to say one thing. I really miss Holy Nova.
Oh my god, yeah.
I don't know if you're serious or not.
Nova is awesome. So
It's Confetti Explosion. You can't help
I
it.
don't
you're
know
not
if
missed
you're
that.
serious
I
or
used
not.
to solo Dead Mines with Holy Nova.
Now you have to use Mind Seer, and what good's
See,
that?
And
Mind
you have to
Seer is
stop
annoying.
and cast it.
well, not only that, the fact is when you target stuff and it dies, then you have to target something else. It's annoying.
Whereas with Holy
So-
Nova, you
Your
should
tank
just-
shouldn't be dying.
I miss it while leveling.
Well,
What?
Anyway, back to our discussion. One
Sorry.
glyph that might help Discipline Priest is the new glyph of Weakened Soul. Reducing the duration of Weakened Soul by 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's obviously
Have a
their
tank
little
amplified,
prerogative for spamming Power Shield. Quote unquote spamming.
Well, I think
Because they want you to spam it, but not spam it. I don't understand.
I do think that what they're going for with that is trying to put a little bit more power back into disc tank healing, because at least 25-man level, I would take a Resto Shaman. I mean, I wouldn't take, but I would put them on the tank above a disc priest. I would put a holy paladin, above a disc priest on the tank, not because they're necessarily more powerful, but because disc has that strength as an atonement healer and sort of the floating healer, where we can sort of go from different role to different role and really help out and act as that.
It's like the definition of OP. You know that, right?
Yes and no.
Everyone...
Not really, Sparkle. I mean, shamans have the same thing with tidal waves, from where they transition
shamans
between chain
should
healing and
pretty
tank
much-
healing.
They're like designed for spot tank healing. Like, you need to really kill them at low health to get the maximum benefit from HPM
I
and
mean,
HPS.
Arguably, every healer should have the ability to change between tank healing to raid healing within
they're
relative
here.
ease.
Every
Yeah.
healer
Except
does.
Holy. pretty
Every
much,
healer
but-
does have the ability, but like you said, they don't have it with the relative ease.
Everybody has the ability, but
It's
some
not
are.
some are more effective than others.
Yeah. Well, and you have, I think Resto Druids are an interesting sort of healer in that sense, because I feel like they're that secondary bolster. They have Life Bloom up, they have Rejuve up, but then they're attending to the raid primarily. 25-man again. This is probably different on 10-man, but I would never just say you go heal that tank. The entire fight. That's what you're doing. You load them up with hots and you go about your business. And I think I like that model of healing. I like the fact that different healers are gonna fill roles in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, personally, to me, one of Disc's weaknesses should be that it can't deal as well with unpredictable random damage as other healers. That's kind of what Holy does well at, So
That's true. And
Resto Druids obviously have that kind of AoE burst damage situation as well, although they're obviously getting tools for it. They should be good at that, but my views on how Resto Druid and Mistweaver should be are a bit...
Blizzard's always kind of looked at druids like they were a buffer for the raid versus having the ability to burst a raid up. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how the streams play out, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I don't necessarily think that outside of like a short cooldown like shrooms that they should really have major burst heals. I mean, every healer has to have their weaknesses, and that's always been Druid's weakness.
Well,
I agree.
to be fair, I mean, Resto Druids don't bring too much utility either. So there's that. Like, Tranquility is so outclassed by...
Utility's
a
not
bunch of-
just raid cooldowns, though. I mean, so...
they are a highly mobile healer, which is great.
They have a
They do
battle
have their
res.
Oh, absolutely.
they have a
That's
battle
huge
res.
on Blade Lord, so...
Symbiosis.
Symbiosis
or
for
Iron Trump,
cooldowns.
rather. Yep.
So I mean, they definitely have their utility. It's just not the first thing that comes to mind.
And I think don't Druids?
No, it's not. Yeah.
Don't Druids also have more mitigation they can put on other players and other classes?
They have
Iron
Iron
Bark.
Bark.
They just have Iron Bark, which is significantly worse than... Not worse on a one-to-one basis, but... Clemency is broken. That is basically all I have to say. Clemency is really, really, really strong. And if Holy Pallies sucked at healing, which they don't, obviously, If Holy Pally sucked at healing, Clemency would literally be its own reason to bring a Holy Pally to a raid.
And you
Well,
have
you
to
can bring a
consider,
ret for that too.
Yeah, but, you know.
and you have to consider, Iron Bark is essentially just pain sup light. That's what it is.
I mean,
as a
Resto
tank heal.
Druids wanted that for
tank.
ages, so,
Yeah.
they did deserve it. Like, they should have had it ages ago, but, it's a good
Yeah.
cooldown, absolutely, but...
And of course, the
Sack.
4-piece PvP, that 30-second cooldown.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's
nice.
obviously no double sack, though, or pain sup is extremely strong,
Or even Hand of Purity on fights that have constant bleed damage.
No, Clemency is broken. Broken! It's freaking
Strong
broken,
class
okay?
nerfed.
Apparently, Clemency
It's what?
is broken.
Strong healer's class broken. I mean, nerfed.
Oh my
But
god.
they
This
probably
may just
need
be
it.
my opinion about Disc, but I feel like Disc has way too many glyphs.
Yeah.
And it comes across that way in
That should be
PvP
base.
and PvE. Like, you have way too many glyphs that should be baseline.
Holy has
Agree.
too few.
Has too many. It's hard to. I mean, I guess that's the point, that it's hard to decide. But still, I feel on the priest more than any other that I'm paralyzed trying to figure out what I should take.
Make a mistake and risk everything.
But I'm paranoid about everything, so that may just be me.
And we love you for that.
Like I was saying on the forums, they just need to give all healers one spell called Absorb that's spammable.
Oh my gosh. That would be an interesting change. And
It would.
Yeah, I think that leads well into the spirit shell change, which I know is highly contentious right now. It's not benefiting directly from mastery. It says no longer benefits, but you have to include that the fact that DA does benefit from mastery. So there's that secondary sort of transfer that you get from DA benefiting. But it now also benefits from Divine Aegis and crit chance properly. When I decided to test out different just heavy builds, mastery heavy, crit heavy, haste heavy, and I found that looking back and forth between live and PTR, that a mastery heavy build had PTR operating at about 60% the strength of live. Crit had about 70% the strength of live, and haste was about 65% the strength of live. So we're definitely seeing a big cut in what that's doing.
That pretty much is identical to what I found as well. And as far as stat weighting for Spirit Shelf, that crit and haste are close, but crit has a slight advantage over haste, and mastery, obviously, for Spirit Shell at least, is kind of bunk. Or
Yeah.
very bunk, actually.
And I know people are talking about how that's changing our values for the different stats. And I know right now there are many who are saying, mastery haste, crit haste, what have you, mastery crit. And I think that's something we can get into in a bit as to, what's going to be the most powerful sort of ranking of the stats. But to touch on the concept of identity, I know that a lot of priests are really frustrated because mastery, I think above all other masteries, our mastery is just integral with our identity. I mean, we are known as that absorb spec. We're all about mitigation. We're all about absorbing damage. And I think it's counterintuitive for the spell to, that embraces our core as a healer, to be unaffected by the stat that also best reflects our core.
To be fair, I think it's unintuitive that Guardian of Ancient Kings should give you a haste buff when you cast, but it does anyway. No, but seriously, Spirit Shell made it kind of a nerf.
Oh yeah, there's no denying that it's
No one's-
yeah.
Yeah.
Go
no
ahead.
one's.
Although
Sorry.
it should have gone to DA instead of. Who knows?
No one's arguing that it didn't need a nerf. It's just the way they chose to nerf it by removing it from being directly affected from mastery is, kind
I
of weird.
suppose, but
They could have nerfed it in other ways and still have it at least be somewhat
They could have nerfed
Well,
the
more
actual
so than
cap of it,
indirectly
too.
affected. Well, yeah, that's well. I mean, it does have a cap. It's capped at 60% of our health, but it could
Right, but I
could
mean,
have been
like-
lowered. They could have changed the coefficient or
Right,
something.
Instead of nerfing it by getting it not being directly affected by your mastery, they could have lowered the cap on it from 60% of your health to X percentage of your health.
Yeah, 40%.
See, that nerfs 10 man way harder than 25 man, though.
I was
That's
So-
fair
just
point.
going to say the same.
That's true. And, that could be something that would need to be directly affected at the 10 and at the 25. Have the 25 cap at 40, which I don't think would affect, I don't think that would affect us much at all just because, I do think there needs to be something that changes in the spec or in the coefficients themselves just because, on 25, people are taking less absorption overall, but you're getting a massive amount of healing spread out throughout the entire raid. Isn't what you're getting at the 10-man, as I'm sure Morin can tell people.
Well, even
we're getting-
on my priest gear, my priest is absolute garbage geared right now. Like, I can cap out Spirit Shell in probably under 8 spells or so in 10 man. So,
Yeah, it's easily.
like, my priest is under 470 level, too.
Yep, it's very easy to cap it on both parties, well within the duration of the buff. So yeah, it's definitely less per person in 25 than it is in 10, obviously.
Yeah. So I, maybe have mastery affect it less, but still directly. It's for an absorb, not to be affected by our mastery or directly by our mastery is a little bit of an awkward situation, I think.
Strange.
It looks like I'm going to skip a couple since this is more or less directly related. That is the change bringing DA down. No longer guaranteed on Prayer of Healing casts. And I know that there are a lot of priests who are very angry about this. It's my least favorite change.
Even I'm angry about it. That lowers disc sustained, and that's not what needed to be hit.
I mean, I
It's just silly.
don't heal on a priest, and I'm angry about it just because my co-healer is, and that kind of gets rid of a little bit of leeway on raid burst.
Yeah.
Sparkle. On that note, DA does scale really hard late in expansions, so I kind of
absolutely.
wish it
It
would have been a
should be.
coefficient nerf. But because, I mean, even in Firelands on my priest, like, this is jumping back in expansion, but by the time we hit Firelands, I could basically maintain DA on 2 parties and roll it enough that you could survive his cleave phase without it. And I'm sure you're going to see that without any real major cooldowns. I'm sure you're going to see that again, like if they would have kept DA in the game.
It's
Well,
actually something that already happens. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't think any of us think that it didn't need to be toned down. I think all of us were probably pretty shocked when they buffed it. I know. Yeah, I was kind of like, where did that come from? But I do think it needed to be lowered, but to be completely taken away, not really feeling that one.
Yeah. No, it's there are 2 levels, that you look at. The first is the touchy-feely identity standpoint. And I guess the best way to put it is like, I feel like I'm being robbed. I embrace what I consider the sub-identity of Disc. We're the atonement healer, the damage dealer. But I still feel that the spec's main push and the main draw is its mitigation. And it's being taken away which is not okay. You know, I don't think we were ever meant to be able to, you know, do the pre-shielding, you know, and just rolling DA constantly like we saw last expansion, and like we're already seeing this expansion. Last night I was playing around in Raid because we were doing some just some farm, and I just threw on a ton of, you know, of spirit, and I went to town, and I was able to essentially just mash Prayer of Healing constantly, just cycle it through all the groups, and it was pretty disgusting, pretty awful, but it's you know, I think that speaks to the fact that DA is simply too powerful, not that it needs to be gone completely.
Agree. I think like I said, knocking it never should have. First of all, it never should have been buffed to whatever 50%. That was just
absolutely not. This
absurd.
did need a sustain buff, but it was already getting one in that patch anyway. So yeah, it was just silly all around.
Yeah, and I mean,
they just hit the wrong problem so hard here. But you know,
I don't think they're hitting the nail on the head. You know, I think they're.
We'll see how it pans out, but it's just that disc strength is always, unless they remove it, going to be spiritual, and that's not changing. So you know, I honestly don't know how they'll balance that, because it's just so powerful in almost any iteration, unless it does 60% of your actual healing as absorbs, and the rest of it doesn't happen or something. You know, the full absorb thing is just too powerful. It's so easy to cheese everything with it.
Well, the easiest way to fix that is stop making mechanics that come every minute, so we can use.
Well, think about it this way: if it's more than every minute, if it's 2 minutes or so, it makes spiritual even stronger, because
make it
can be
45 seconds rather than 2 minutes.
Then it makes other healers penalized. See, so that's the issue here. If you're making it too short,
constant damage instead of more spike damage that's so regular and predictable.
Yeah, but this is not bad on fights like Garelon that does have constant damage. So you see, that's still a problem there. Spiritual is always a throughput increase. So that's obviously what they're trying to hit with the mastery thing.
I hate the thing with that, though, it's also the
Spiritual
DA.
isn't crazy on Garelon.
It's not, but it's not supposed to be. It's just like a straight up, you cast it. It's not going to make a huge deal. Maybe it'll mitigate a crush or whatever, but it will.
I mean, that's the thing, is that it does. It does a lot, especially at the 25-man level, because you're getting less healing, per person, so it has time to go through that full absorb, and you could just cycle through.
I hate to be the downer, but we do need to move on, because we still have to hit Druid changes, and we only have about 45 minutes left in the show, so.
All right.
Yeah.
So, do you guys want to talk about Rapture very quickly?
Just leave the most important change for last. No big deal, just...
it's hardly the most important.
No. It needed
when
to
you can
be
stack spirit and spam powered shield, it'll be important.
Yeah, it will. It needed to be removed from spirit increasing things, because it was not intended to gain mana in that way.
Yeah,
and it
was.
Issue,
Go on, sorry.
No, that was pretty much it. I'm happy that it was unlinked. Maybe that's wrong to say, but mana was supposed to matter the entire X pack. That was the reason that we went to the fixed mana pools, and it first tier did not matter. So
we're
it had to be
scaling
removed.
really hard with spirits.
Exactly.
So, like every healer, not just disc too. So once you get 15k spirit, it's just insane. But
we were leaps and bounds above even
set 25% decrease to all powered shields. That's a major issue. Well,
it's
not an issue.
It's a big
right now,
change. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I don't think it will be. You're still considering the cost versus reward.
You have to think, like, 10-man, it will possibly be a very big deal.
Even considering 10-man, you have to consider just how much. The new costs are 11,666 if you're an Inner Will, and 13,725 if you're an Inner Fire. If I shield 5 people in Inner Fire, I've spent 22.9% of my mana pool for about 500k healing, assuming about 100k per target. Precasting Spirit Shell 5 times, assuming you're not already capped out on, 4 times on 10-man. At the 25-man level, on the PTR, I'm spending less mana for twice the amount of healing. And I understand it's a cooldown, so you're getting that double healing for the same price. But I think it's still going to be prohibitive enough that you're not going to be able to just spam endlessly.
True, and we shouldn't be. I don't think we shouldn't be, and I don't think very many people want to shield spam. But I think that we'll have to be using it more than we were before to make up for losing DA on POH.
Absolutely. And, there's that question of whether they want us to use it preemptively or for 25-man, do the shield weaving again, and I think that only works on a few, damage models. You're not going to be able to do that on certain fights. Finally, do we want to go over the tier 15 bonuses?
Real quick.
I thought we were going to go over that at the end.
I'm crazy.
So
Sounds
Druid
good.
Changes.
Okay.
So I guess we're going to go from our lovely priests over to our few druids, because priests do outnumber us this episode.
Priests outnumber everyone. It's scary.
That's true.
Because we're awesome.
Vera, where do you want to start with your druid changes?
I guess we can start with the main thing that seems to be getting a lot of discussion, which would probably be the wild mushrooms, because I know
10% to reduce. Pretty decent.
yeah,
Not
and I
huge,
mean obviously
decent.
that too.
Needed.
But shush. Okay. But for those that don't know, what they're doing with wild mushrooms is they're going to make it so when you're healing with rejuvenation, the over healing that it performs, it would basically go inside of the mushroom, and then when you use the mushroom, it heals everybody in that area of effect. It'll gain 75% of it. And I played with it a little bit earlier on the PTR, and it's still such a pain in the butt to place, though. So I really hope they change that. Have you played with it at all, Frozen? Or anyone else?
Not really. I really should, because I may be going back to my druid as my main, but
Disco P, yeah.
yeah, I know. But we might be picking up a disc, we'll see. I've looked at it a little bit, but the issue is what the issue has always been with mushrooms in terms of pre-placing it, and
You can't place all 3 at once.
yeah, you can make good use out of it with the changes if your raid is really smart and designed with how they do around it, but it feels like kind of like a version of healing spheres that you have to plan out better, which is
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
It does seem to be that way.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they're actually trying. The biggest heal I got off of the mushrooms on the PTR, I think was 165,000. And individually they were ticking for I think 55,000. I think was roughly around it, and that was just me standing in a field with 20 mobs on me, beating me, and me just healing like a crazy person since the LFR wasn't up. But I'm at least glad that they're trying to work on it. But I'm hopeful that the changes they make to it will be good. But it's still such a pain to place, especially I don't know what it's like for an actual raid, but for PvP, there's really no I use it now sometimes during places like Warsong Gulch because I know where someone's going to be standing. But beyond that, I never really use it currently, personally.
That's because
I can't see using it in PvP aside from like having a set point where your team is always going to go if they need an emergency heal. But
Yeah,
that's
like I
more
put it over like where the
mistakenly
flag cap is, if that's where the person's standing. Like if they have like the high flag debuff or something, and that's I think that's the only time I've used it in a rated battleground.
I'm just curious, like if your rejuve spam went into a buff as opposed to having to pre-plant the mushroom, you think you would be able to use it and have it feel less clunky?
That would be far better. I'd still prefer to not have 3 casts for placing them, but that's its own thing.
Well, arguably, you could move
be...
shrooms off the GCD and just make the bloom on GCD or something of the sort.
Yeah, that's something I would think would be better to do if you took it off of the GCD.
I think it should be plant all 3 at once, personally, because, yeah, it's annoying.
Yep. But that would make too much sense.
Really.
Alright, so the other main change for Druids is the Rejuvenation change, and the fact that it's going to be costing less mana. Last update I saw said 9% less. Did someone say 10% earlier?
It's 9%.
It's
okay.
It's pretty close to 10. It's somewhere between 9 and 10.
Yeah.
It's like 9 point something, I
it's
think
like
exactly.
It's like 9.6 continuing.
That's weird. Why? Why don't they just make it 10?
Because this is Blizzard, and they don't really do a lot of things that make sense.
Yeah, anyway, that's... I don't know. I don't think there's anything really to say about it other than Resto Druids needed that. And
yeah,
that's
I'm
not
excited
it.
for that.
To
It
blanketing
was
a raid with
pretty
Rejuve.
necessary. You still won't be able to blanket unless maybe you're stacking it with the current 2-piece. I don't know how they're going to stack. If that's going to be... Well, they will. I don't know if it'll be additive or multiplicative.
Oh, yeah. Be mostly the same either way, so won't be too much of a difference. So, yeah. Really nothing more to say there. It's just...
Well, I would say one other thing about it, which is that it still helps 10-man more than it helps 25, and 10 is probably... We don't need as much help in 10 as we do in 25, and...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is... I don't know, that's like a whole mechanical thing with just the whole Resto Druid toolkit, though. You know,
Well, yeah, even the mushroom change.
Yeah. Wild Growth is just inherently more favorable to 10-man. Efflorescence with the 3 target cap is 10-man again, so it's just, you know... I don't know. It's just... Resto Druids are inherently like that right now. So I don't know how they'd fix that, but...
Alright, and another change for Druid is the change to Soul Force specifically for Restoration. It'll grant 70% haste on the next spell cast after the Druid cast Swift End. I also played with that a little bit on the PGR. And we actually had a question about that this week too.
Yeah, but so basically you could use Swift Mend and then Healing Touch whoever right after, and not have to spend, 2.5 seconds casting it?
Yeah, so basically.
For that,
generally speaking,
Wow.
well, I don't even use Healing Touch because Glyph
Yeah,
Growth is better. Typically, I use my Soul of the Forest procs, because I take it now, actually. I use it on Wild Growth, because it gets some, I think, 3 additional ticks, maybe just 2.
What would you say?
So...
I think it's 2.
Oh, I forget, but I'm geared for the 6652 Wild Growth breakpoint right now. With the change to Soul of the Forest, I think our breakpoint will go up to... I think the one I'll gear for is somewhere around 6800 with the Wild Growth, or Soul of the Forest buff active.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really use Soul of the Forest right now. What was that?
How many, with the next haste breakpoint, how many ticks of wild growth would you be looking at?
I think it's 15. I think that was 70% haste,
Sweet.
5%. Yeah, I think it's 15th tick. I can do some math and get back to you on that really quick.
And ticks of wild growth would be really nice.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyhow, so we done with that there.
Well, I think the other one that was like considered a main one would be Nature's Vigil, which is now have a 90-second cooldown, which originally was 3 minutes, and it will increase healing and damage by 10% instead of 20, so you'll be able to cast it every 90 seconds instead of every 3
More
minutes.
often is better than...
Yeah.
Well, situational, but you will want it more often.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that change.
I think it actually is more of a change to Moonkin than it is to Resto.
Yeah. I use it in PvP just to kill people.
Yeah.
There you go.
Reju spam kills.
Regrowth spam kills.
Alright,
I
so,
guess,
then
do we
your
want to
vote.
start with our tier 15 bonuses?
Sure.
So we'll
Oh
do,
my god, my 4Ps.
yeah, so we'll go with
Sorry, you
Druid
guys go on
first.
with this
So
one.
the Druid 2-piece
Fine.
bonus is the Swiftman's ground effect is going to be able to heal up to 4 targets each time it heals. And the 4-piece bonus for Druid is the healing done by your Rejuvenation will increase by 6% each time it causes healing.
Yeah, that 4-piece is weird.
Alright, so for 2-piece, I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I already have trouble getting like 3 people to stand in the green circle, let alone get a 4th person.
Well, Matt, you can argue that's kind of a learn to play
Well,
issue.
yes,
not,
I know, but
Yeah, that's
it's not the
ability
raid
issue.
It's not my fault. It's the raid's fault. But I mean, it's
Again, more
It's
beneficial
nice,
towards
but-
10-man than 25, so... There you go, Blizzard.
But
there you
so
go.
basically your raid sees a green circle on the ground and runs away from it.
no, they just don't move towards it. They're like,
Might
oh,
be
that's
painful.
pretty.
You don't know.
Or, oh, that's evil. That's how people were when Swiftman first came out, and it had the green area of effect. People would run out of it
That's
because
how
thought it was
people were
evil.
when Healing Rain first came
Well,
out. They saw a big blue
so-
circle on the
Light
ground
well.
and ran away.
Well, you can't really.
Clicking
I mean,
Lightwell is
you can't.
hard, okay.
You can't blame people that you can, but you can't. But it's like they spend the beginning part of Cataclysm trying to teach people not to stand in crap, and then have spells that you're supposed to stand in.
Well, that
It's
ends the
DPS. They get confused. They don't know what, if they run away from Healing Rain and stand in the fire.
And they die, and you're like, well, that was your fault. I'm sorry.
They stand next to a light well and they're dying and they don't even do anything to click it.
Again, it's hard to click it.
I
It
love
takes,
Lightwells.
like 90% of their brain.
Oh my god, a hard cast. Click. Go back to casting.
So somebody in
Again,
chat wants to know is with the current content, how it's designed, would people want to go for the 4-piece tier 15 or a tier 14 2-piece tier 15 2-piece? And to True, before we answer that, raiding can be hard and frustrating when some of your DPS are complete and utter derps.
And of course, don't forget there are a lot of people who just are against ideas like Lightwell, against ideas like, having to stand in a specific spot or move to stand in a specific spot.
Yeah, I agree. There are people that have the mentality, it's your job to heal me, then heal me. Yeah.
people will do that in your rating.
The
Though. They
mage
will
and all-
not. Well, usually.
The mage,
Unless you're Frozen's group.
the mage in my guild's raid group, not me, Joe, but the mage in my personal guild's raid group, refuses to move out of his rune of power unless there is bad under him.
He's glued to it. It's sticky.
Exactly. And I mean, I play a mage. I understand he gives you a DPS boost, but I've told him plenty of times when we're going into a fight where there's high mobility, It may not be the best talent to have for that fight.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that two-piece could be pretty good, especially if you're using Heroic Tier 14 until Hero Tier 15 for Druids, because that 10% is... Even if it stacks additively, multiplicatively would be worse, but okay, worse.
Yeah, I would consider keeping the two-piece.
I mean, it really depends on the damage patterns, so... But...
I mean, it would probably let you use Rejuve a lot more.
Yeah, I don't think either of them are big enough to make like a huge deal over it, though, because yeah, it's not.
Seems really lackluster. It seems
not
almost
really
counterintuitive that
Honestly,
the rejuves don't start out hitting harder and then
You have
drop
to remember,
down
Rejuvenation
versus the other way around.
is not going to be... You're going to be getting an additional 10% with the two-piece, with the almost 10% reduction you're getting come 5.2.
It's 10%. It's 10%.
Well, yes, I know, but at the same
So
time,
it's,
like,
once 5.2 hits with that two-piece, it's essentially a 20% reduction from what it is now. Frozen's typing.
yeah.
Basically, it is situational. It's basically on damage patterns. I'm 90% sure, but yeah. I mean, I think that is a major problem with Resto, Druid, though, that you basically are supposed to use Rejuve for everything, but then Blizzard is like, no, we make it too expensive to spam Rejuve. I mean, spamming Rejuve in itself is a bad playstyle, so it's a bit... I'm not sure where they're going to go with it, really. And they can't really focus on shrooms because people will hate that.
I guess I feel like the problem right now is that they're making the changes to mushrooms, and then they're making changes like the Rejuve set bonus is... It feels like it's sort of designed to make it seem like their mushroom change is working better than it actually would be. I think that's probably been the case with a couple of other changes in the past too. But
Kind of seems
Should we
like...
move on to priest bonuses or something? Sure.
So the priest two-piece is prayer mending, heals for 10% more each time it jumps. And the four-piece is the penance and... Did we ever figure out what that spell is?
Circle of Healing.
Circle of Healing. So Penance and Circle of Healing will have a 40% chance to summon a golden apparition, which will move to a nearby alley and heal for an additional 92.5k to 107.5k.
I kind of like them, personally.
Like it as
Does
well.
sound nice.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a big fan. Prayer of Mending was something I wanted buffed a bit. And I think it's compelling. You know, it makes me want to cast it more and really see where it goes and just how high I can get it.
I do enjoy the fights where prayer of mending is one of my top heals, or the top heal.
It honestly sounds like they're making
Yeah.
a new minigame.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but I miss Wrath of the Lich King when Prayer of Mending was a big reckoning force in your arsenal for both, especially for Holy, but for Disc as well.
So Sparkles just left the call. I don't know why.
Yeah, he disconnected and he can't. It's not letting him.
1 second, I'll read them.
I like the priest two-piece too, and now I'll be more diligent at using prayer mending.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Yay!
Okay, back to what you're
Welcome
saying.
back. The golden apparition sounds pretty interesting too. It's like a holy and priest version of shadow apparition.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
not as buggy and
Yeah.
crappy, and Shadow Apparitions suck. They suck. Gosh.
Last thing I saw on the Golden Apparition is like Blizzard said that it's spawned near an ally versus moving from the player to an ally. So it's supposed to be instant versus
it's just going to be treated as a missile. I haven't heard anything about an actual move time for it. But
as long as it's not highway.
As long as it's not like the way the shadowy ones work, like if it's anywhere reasonable, it'll be okay.
Yeah, it's explicitly not, so that's out. So just a straight throughput increase, pretty good.
I'm gonna miss the penance cooldown reduction, especially with the buff to penance that we're getting.
Yeah, that's true.
I would know because I still can't get my 4-piece, so.
I don't know why you're complaining.
I just got mine today. I don't like you anymore.
So that restoration would be 7.
So, on to monks. We can't really elaborate on the monk changes because our monk players aren't here, sadly.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Our monk Mist is in the channel.
Mist is in chat, but he doesn't have a mic, so he can't talk about them. He can type about them all they want. So the 2-piece is Renewing Mist will heal for 15% more each time it travels to a new target.
Which is good.
Yes, it is good. It's always good to get an increase in a heal. And
when it's Renewing Mist, it's really good.
Yeah. And then the 4-piece bonus will reduce the cooldown of your Thunder Focus Tea by 10 seconds. What does Thunder Focus Tea do?
Oh, man, that's really good.
I've never seen. I don't really heal with monks. So what does Thunder Focus Tea do?
It resets your. Okay.
I'm looking at chat for Mist to tell me. Cause...
God.
Well, anyway, what's it do, Sparkle?
Okay. So it makes your Diamond Uplift refresh all the Renewing Mist durations that are up. That it hits all Renewing Mists. So basically, you get a free Renewing Mist refresh on everything. And it doubles your Surging Mists.
Oh, that is nice.
So, yeah, it's really nice. It's at a 45-second cooldown baseline, so that's down
from 45 to 35.
Yeah, and it lasts for 30 seconds. So
you're basically you're only going to have a 5-second duration when it's not up, is what it seems.
I am 99% sure it is consumed if you use one uplift, but
it is.
Hold on.
It also talks about something else.
Right. So, Shaman. Go ahead. You're about to say something. Or not. So, Shaman tier bonuses. Our 2-piece is going to be our Healing Stream Totem. Will now heal an additional target for 25% its normal amount.
It's honestly just a straight throughput buff, and it's a really good one, too. The 4-piece is going to be more 10 versus 25 minutes based.
Yeah, it's
so
going to
Ancestral Awakening on the target.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit better for those who heal in 10-man than 25-man, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. The 10-man Shaman, or the Shaman tier 15 is, again, better for 10-man, so.
I mean, I could see it being useful in 25-man.
25-man with Shaman would take it unless they were assigned to tank healing, or if it was a fight that had a large, single target healing, or single target damage.
And that one too,
so what it's going to be is it's going to have the 4-pieces Ancestral Awakening will have a 50% chance to trigger on non-critical healing. So, and then Paladin. It's not terrible.
It has really good. That's like an amazing proc chance actually, but even if you're not gearing for crit, so.
Yeah.
But again, like the priest tier 15 4-piece, it's just straight throughput increase. Don't know if anyone's mapped it yet, but I'm sure Danny will.
Yeah, so Paladin, 2-piece will increase your healing done by daybreak by 50%. And
which sucks because Holy Radiance sucks.
Yeah.
Good.
They really have brought. I mean, Healing Radiance was okay at the end of, Cataclysm. And it does seem like they brought it down.
It's crap.
That Holy Radiance is ridiculously overpowered, not just okay.
Like, I could just ignore, basically what, in 25 especially, what you could do is just ignore your finishers entirely and just spam Holy Radiance because it was more HPS. And that's kind of dumb. Like, that shouldn't be how Holy Power works, but that's basically how good it was. So, you know, I just don't like the whole Daybreak system in general anymore. So the two-piece, like the current two-piece, is not that great. So, I mean, most likely, we're just going to keep our four pieces for a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't even know comparatively the tier 15 four-piece, which is 20% increased healing to beacon, which is good. It's okay. Freaking evocative of Wrath Beacon of Light, which was basically beacon one tank spam Holy Light the other. But basically 2 seconds off Holy Shock is just so big. I really don't know how they would top that. So I do see Holy Pallies hanging on to four-piece for really a really long time.
The tier 15 four-piece for Holy Paladins is it's going to increase the healing you transfer by your Beacon of Light, or to your Beacon of Light target, I'm sorry, by an additional 20%.
Yeah, it's not that good. Compared to 2 seconds off Holy Shock. 2 seconds off Holy Shock is just so amazing.
Being able to generate Holy Power quicker is
a
lot more beneficial than extra healing to Beacon, who, when it makes it overhealing anyway, it's not bad, but extra Holy Power is like, yeah.
I mean, Holy Shock is our most efficient spell. Since you do have to, for Holy Power use spells, you do need to factor in the fact that they actually cost mana to use, since you need to generate that Holy Power first with mana. So Holy Shock is our most efficient heal. It heals for an amazing amount for, you know, a generator, especially compared to Cataclysm, where my Holy Shock in full Hero DS gear healed for like maybe 25k non-crits. So, you know, it was still pretty good HPM. It was just not that good HPS. And now it's just like at the start of the tier is already hitting for like 70k easily. So, you know, it's a big deal. So I'm really not seeing the tier 15 bonuses being desirable at all, especially if you have tier 14 hero pieces. Like, you're going to get them eventually, but I'm not sure if you'd get them before you get heroic tier 15 pieces. It's just, that's how good tier 14 pieces.
Yeah, I can see where that would be true, to be honest.
I'm honestly kind of curious on how we're going to see stats on Holy Pally gear scale compared to the set bonus. So it'll be kind of interesting.
But again, it's just that four piece. I don't know if anyone's actually attached a number to how good the current Holy Pally four piece is, since I think most of the good Pally theory crafters have not really been playing much. But yeah, it's. If you did put a number on it, it would be a significant throughput increase. Like, any Pallies who've gotten four-piece since just before they had it, you know, having 3 pieces or whatever, they'll all have seen their mana efficiency, their HPS, everything would have gone up significantly. So, you know, it's just kind of sucky, because unless the tier 15 bonuses are changed. And I don't see anything really being as good as 2 seconds off Holy Shock, unless it's something like increases your illuminated healing by 20% flat increase, which would be insane. You know, it would basically have to be that OP.
Alright. Chris, do we have anything left? Questions?
Well,
forms?
we have 13 minutes left in the show, and I think we had a couple of questions. I just don't have them in front of me.
Here, I actually just pulled them up.
So,
First question is on Priest from Fluffy Chew from the official forums. She asks, if you always use Spirit Spell as a cooldown and Prayer Feeling usage wisely, how hard of a hit do you think your healing will take when the patch hits in regards to Discipline? Lots of people have been saying we're going to be worse off than we were on initial release. And then she also has another question, will the changes bring more viability in PvP, and will I have better survivability in arenas?
Number 2, no, because they nerfed Phantasm, and Phantasm is pretty good.
They gave Priest back Inner Will or Inner Focus. I can't remember what the ability is called. It's once they, yeah. It's where if they take 20% of their damage, they get a 10% damage reduction.
Yeah, Discarding has it, so...
I thought they were buffing it, though.
No, Discarding
Holy
has it. Holy's getting it, and 5-2.
The thing is, Phantasm's getting nerfed, so that's actually a pretty big deal. I believe they're adding something else to compensate, though, because it's mainly a nerf targeted at Shadow. Like, they do know that Disc and Holy need buffs, so... right now, it's very, very early to say what Disc and Holy PvP viability will be. Also, the first one, no. Initial release Disc was really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, as to that, we're not going to be in that state. We are taking a hit, but how much of a hit will... we're going to have to see... because we are losing DA, but we have to see how much we can get back with using shield more, and the change to Binding Heal in certain situations. We are losing, but to think that we're going back to launch state, I disagree with that vehemently.
Imagine if a Resto Druid could only use Swiftman on Regrowth Hot. It would just be that broken. How stupid was that Spiritual and Archangel can stack, and it's just so many conflicts within the spec itself. It was just silly.
yeah.
So you're not going to go back to that level.
Yeah, you're not going to be going back to initial release. I mean, we have a question in chat for Eco. Amortice wants to know, why do you hate her or him?
That would be Every, and it's because he's making me raid as Windwalker and not Mistweaver.
Oh, that sounds like a personal issue, to be honest.
Windwalker's supposed to be really good after the changes.
Yeah,
Windwalker's going to be really strong next patch. But,
Vigil, though.
Ellie, did you have any input on the question from Fluffy Joe?
I don't think we're going to be nearly as bad. As Sparkle said, there were a lot of conflicts in the spec. We had some significant changes fairly early on. The buff to Prayer of Healing really helped. The buff to Mending helped a bit. So what I'm hoping to see is that, I think we're going to dip a little low. And I'm definitely concerned because of the DA change really concerns me.
Right. Hello? So, we're having major technical issues right now, guys.
I think you're better now.
So we see. Yeah, you sound better now. It's
Yeah,
not
you're like
all
night and day
choppy.
better.
Oh, that is better.
Well, since they can still hear me even when we're not in the call, so...
Did you explain
Quite
it to
well,
them
actually.
where we went?
Actually, I went completely silent as I tried to fix it.
Oh, good job.
Because
Maybe we should have somebody do the call next time. So
Well, I wasn't doing the call.
Interfering with the stream. Oh, you weren't?
I wasn't doing the call
well,
this time.
why did it hung up?
I don't know, but whoever was doing the call, it kind of crapped out on them.
Yeah, we kind of noticed.
And we just, like, lost everything.
I thought there was like a dramatic pause, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
to everybody
silent.
in
Like,
chat,
oh.
I'm sorry that I went completely silent. I was trying to fix and get the call back. I should have kept talking, but it kind of slipped my mind that since I'm
You're doing a
streaming,
podcast, no big deal.
since I'm streaming it, you could still hear me even if the call wasn't up. So,
Oh my gosh. At
so
least didn't say anything else. I don't know.
I think we're going to change the title of this podcast. And Vero's still not in the call. Like, what the hell?
Oh my gosh.
But I think we should change the title of this podcast from 5.2 changes to Night of the Technical
Night
Issues.
the Holy Priest took over, or Night the Priest took over.
Basically.
And
that's what's
broke
gonna happen.
the podcast in the process.
Yeah, it just could not handle the awesome that was the amount of
We'll go with that.
that was the amount of priests that we had.
Back to that initial question.
Yeah,
that
what
sort of
was
out.
the question?
I think they're
Vero,
asking
pick
like
up.
how bad it'll end up being. I think we'll probably lose 10, 15, maybe 20% at most of our current healing. But
Of
the
course, I'll
playstyle,
be balanced, honestly.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But the
'Cause Disc is
playstyle
way
is going to
ahead.
feel worse. Is my issue, and it's gonna. I'm not
What in
gonna like to play
particular?
as much. We're gonna lose stacking DA as a viable sort of method of healing and dealing with mechanics. I'm not saying that the way it is currently didn't need to be changed, but I think it could have been done with numbers tweaking instead of
Well,
just removing it altogether.
DA absolutely should have been dropped to 30%, but I think being able to have the mana efficiency to just spam power or prayer of healing or in the first place with overhealing just to stack DA, that's shouldn't honestly be happening.
Oh,
it
yeah.
shouldn't be
No,
happening.
I think
but
prayer should be more expensive and DA should be lower, but I don't think that DA should be gone from it.
Oh no,
I don't
absolutely not.
and part
like-
of the issue was Rapture scaling with spirit buffs. That was what was, at least in part, making it possible to spam POH for the entirety of a 6-minute fight.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that the change to Rapture alone, it was big enough to negate us being able to roll that. And our
Excellent,
numbers,
yeah.
I mean, prayer of healing without DA, I mean, it's a significant drop in HPS, and it's big drop in HPM. We're going from 19.57, 18.73 roughly, to around the 11.35 area in HPM, and that's a massive drop. So, like I said, I'm hoping it works out. I'm okay with
At
us
least
being a
being
little bit.
negative.
I am, a lot of people, I'm ever the optimist. I think we'll be okay. Like I said, I think we can be below other healers and make up for it with our mitigation.
Basically,
But-
because spiritual is extremely strong,
It is strong, and Perv,
especially this tier, of course.
yeah, this
So-
tier, yeah, go ahead.
I think we have one more question. It's just all I want to say. I don't want to spend too long on one and then not be able to hit the other.
Go for it.
Ultimately, bottom line is we're not going to be as bad off as we were coming into Pandaria. We're not being nerfed.
No, launch was terrible.
That way.
terrible for Disc. It was terrible for Holy too, since Holy's all about the mana basically. It's very
I
good.
did fine.
Well, relative to what it should have done.
Well, yeah, I'd gotten so used to like mana management when Kata came out that I was already in that mindset, so I was okay personally.
Oh gosh, changing from in DS from 4.3 to 5.0 was so I was just like, I can't spam Holy Radiance anymore.
Shaman, did you find the other question that you're talking about?
Yeah, we're ready for the other question, I think.
Wait, didn't we have another one sent in?
Did you touch on the one Pippi Kala sent in
No,
from forums?
No, we didn't. That's what
Her
I'm talking
question
about.
was about people's thoughts on Soul of the Forest on PTR and whether you see it being a cookie cutter talent in tier 15 and how easy it'll be to gear, reforge, etc. to hit a high haste breakpoint to take full advantage of it. So this one's more towards Vero and Frozen.
Yeah. Well, I already take Soul of the Forest now, and I'll definitely be keeping it, but I wouldn't say it's cookie cutter by any means. Tree of Life still offers you a great throughput cooldown in addition to mana management with Life Bloom spreading on your raid.
Yeah, Tree's just so versatile, really. It's just as simple as that. Also, cooldowns are good.
Exactly.
Cooldowns are always good.
I like when I can control something.
What's a cooldown?
Like that one. Whose Resto Druid was that didn't use Tree of Life because it's a cooldown?
Mine.
God. Yeah.
Fine, don't worry.
So, yep. Are you going to go through the other questions?
I think that's all the questions
have
we
one.
had sent in. It was a
We had two other ones, but they're ones that are going to take a while to address. I'm going to go ahead and
We'll probably
bring
do
them up, and we'll probably end up working them into a later episode.
We'll probably do another episode that's just completely question and answer, like the first one we did was.
Okay, the first question being from Andrict. Not an exact question really, but wondering if in a future episode you could explain a little bit of your processes behind researching and learning new fights and how that compares between PTR and live. Perhaps even mention some of the mechanics in 5.2
I
fights
know the questions you're
that have
talking
caught your
about.
attention or are particularly difficult from a healer point of view.
I think Mist could say a lot about that, actually.
Yeah.
So
I want to actually put that question off. And same thing with the one from Oz AOZ. Could you guys do a part where you teach people how to theorycraft and trying to cook up numbers to predict my healing? But when I go to Wowhead, he's not level 90 apparently. But yeah, we could definitely.
Diane
somebody in
is
here to talk
really
about
good at that too. So
Yeah, we might actually, because I was thinking that we could actually do entire episodes, or not entire episodes, but entire segments, I guess we could call them, around those questions, because I think we each have different ways, and not many of us in here actually do theorycraft for healing.
Some of us do play around with math, but I don't think any of us actually theorycraft.
Yeah, I mean, I do play around with math with things and all that, but I don't sit here and theorycraft. I mean, not for myself. I'll do it for some of the DPS in my group, but that's about it.
yeah, healer theorycrafting is a whole different beast.
Yeah, it's not the
It's
same.
really up in the air. Like, it's going back to like the whole shaman's mastery versus crit argument that's still been going on for
Well, that's-
Since
That's
mastery
playstyle
was
as
introduced.
well, though.
yeah.
That's playstyle.
So I mean,
mean-
that's it's kind of playstyle. It's kind of not though. It really depends.
Part of it is definitely
But
playstyle, though. You can't.
We'll save that for a later episode, Sparkle. So,
crit.
any questions from chat before we have to go, guys?
Yeah, is there any questions in the chat before we end our third episode? We'll give you guys a couple of seconds, or a couple of minutes as we ramble.
Maybe closing statements.
Ramble.
Well,
For us.
True One wants to know, Ellie, are you coming back to join us in any future
Ellie, I
episodes?
want you back here. You can-
We love you,
I
Ellie.
would love to. I
Yeah.
would love to.
Sweet.
I'm
We
absolutely
could-
up for it.
We could definitely use a 25-man priest since there are differences, even though we play the same spec between how myself and Frozen play 10-man disc versus how you play 25-man disc.
So yes, Ellie will be coming back in a future episode. Don't worry. You'll be able to drool over her voice again.
Oh, Danny.
Oh my god.
You get missed.
Miss, Truan, a couple other of you guys in chat as I was reading it. See,
Because she likes us, she doesn't like you missed.
Oh, Lord.
Vero just linked all of our important sites in the chat. You can also talk to most of us, well, all of us who host the show in the IRC.
Just a fair warning, it gets a little rated R in there sometimes.
It does, and we're not always we're very rarely talking about healing in the IRC.
Very rare.
But if you
Although-
guys want to come
Love to
in,
bring it up.
You're welcome to visit us.
That milk chick, she's a freak.
She
if
is.
you would like to,
But she has pictures, she'll show you.
let me finish my spiel.
Sorry, God.
Fine.
If you'd like to come in and talk to any of us in the IRC, feel free to join us in the Heal chat. There is normally somebody on at some point of the time, 24/7.
We have
So
no lives, evidently.
yeah,
Way to just imply
We-
that.
A lot of us are also in the off-topic forum on the official healing forums
Yes.
at worldofwarcraft.com. The US forums, not the EU ones. So feel free to pop in and say hi there too.
we also frequent the forums and many threads, and we shall warn you probably ahead of time as we do that if you post a which healer is best thread,
We will troll you.
we will.
Badly. We will train you to
DKs.
thread about waffles or colors.
Well, I started
Or-
asking about cake in the disc thread.
Yes, I noticed. You never got that answer about the cake, really.
I know, I'm upset. I want to know what kind
It's
of
a
cake
lie.
it is.
Cake is not a lie. Cake is awesome. You're a
It's
lie.
a lie.
You're a lie.
Your face is a lie.
So join us in the IRC, join us in the
You're-
forums.
Huh.
Join us next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll probably do, if we can find PvPers, PvP next week.
And probably
I
throw
don't
in
think we
monk
know
changes
exactly
at some
yet.
point.
We'll have something.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Practical, and hopefully Miss can get a mic, and we might do that earlier on next week, and just record it. I'll send the raw data or the raw recording to Vero. She can put it up on YouTube and anything.
So, little closing statements here.
If you want to heal, don't be afraid and try it.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Definitely ask.
If you have questions, we're in the IRC.
This
Clemency
will
is
be fine.
Sparkle, you made it like a whole hour without talking about clemency. I'm kind of impressed.
And then he brings it up again.
Anyways, guys.
Then he ruins it. Clemency is OP. Yes,
It is.
Anyways,
but
guys,
most
thanks for
people-
coming, and
My closing
we'll see you
statement.
next week.
Click the
Wow.
damn light well.
Way to go, I go.
Bye.
Click the
Just
light well
glyph
for
it,
milk.
Mel. Come on now.
No. Then people complain, why can't I click your light well?
All right, guys. Thanks for
missed it.
coming.
I'll click your light well.
Whew, baby.
Remember, don't piss off your healers. They hold your life in their hands.
And I'll bop you mercilessly if you're melee DPS. Mercilessly. That's why Clemency is OP.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.